6 in the first drive. And
Yes.
like, okay,
Yeah, that
this is gonna be a long day.
who was it? Because DeAndre Baker was playing DB. Then was it Debo? They had a little bit of exchange of words leading up to the game.
Possibly.
Because I think Debo said, I don't even know who that is. And then DeAndre Baker got the pick six. It's like, well,
Now you know.
yeah, now you know.
Yeah, it was the heat plus the defeatedness.
Yes.
Like, oh, this is not gonna be.
Yeah. I think that might have been the first game that Justin Fields got some playing time. Because there was the clip of him walking off the field that
That's
day
exactly the
where
same
he
thing.
was very frustrated by his lack of use in that game.
That's when at least the rest of the world got to meet who we all know as Justin Fields, Mr. Blase, I guess.
Yes.
And the team had won a big victory, and Justin was less than pleased about it.
I was actually thinking about this over the weekend. I don't know why it popped up into my mind, but I think all like Georgia fans can now say that Justin Fields definitely should have been starting over Jake Fromm at some point.
Justin felt that during that game. It's a great clip.
And look, Fromm was a great quarterback, led them to the national championship their freshman year. But it's like when you look at the talent and the skill alone, it's like, yeah, I think Justin Fields probably would have served Georgia a little bit better in the long run there.
Oh, I just remember his teammate was like, "Man, it's great." He's like, "Yeah, no, I didn't play." No one of his exact words, but I didn't do much.
It's funny. It's funny how those things you look back on them in hindsight and be like, yeah, probably wasn't the right decision there.
He was probably right.
But at least in recent years, it's worked out for Georgia. So, go back and change history. You never know what ends up happening after that. Again, let us know in the file subtext line 803-404-6100 what the hottest sporting event you either played in or attended was. And we'll talk about that a little bit as the show rolls along. You're listening to The Early Game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen. You're on 107.5 The Game.
Gotta take. Hit us up on the Firehouse Subs text line. Firehouse Subs, founded by firemen. 803-404-6100. On your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
Going out purchasing a brand new vehicle, it should be a phenomenal experience. It should be exciting. The kids should be fired up. You should be bragging about it to your co-workers and your family members, talking about this new car or truck or SUV you're going to get. That's what it's all about. It's the feeling, it's the excitement and love.
Chevrolet understands that. They've been in business for over 60 years, taking care of
families just like yours and mine by making the car buying experience phenomenal. Go find out for yourself. I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, or you can visit them on the web, lovechevy.com, whether it is the $1,000.
Welcome into the early game.
We sort of lift the weights, taking classes.
It's more like, yesterday was definitely that day.
Starting. It is the 14 acres of brand new Chevys, the largest selection of Chevrolets anywhere in the Midlands, or whether it's that sales staff. Absolutely phenomenal. Friendly, ready to help you. Whatever it is, Love Chevrolet cannot be beaten. They continue to win all kinds of awards and continue to have family after family after family use them for their next car, truck, or SUV purchase. So go visit Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, or you can visit them on the web, lovechevy.com. Get out to Love Chevrolet and find new roads. For the Weather Guard, last week UConn gave Dan Hurley a contract extension. Hurley recently told me that had Wagner College not hired him back in 2010 without prior college head coaching experience, he'd have remained a career high school coach. Up on our sides. WeatherGuard, the name that stands for unmatched security in truck boxes, is now making a name for itself on the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series circuit. WeatherGuard is the official sponsor of the safety and security work crews at Speedway Motorsports tracks across the country. Engineers from job sites to race sites. Boxes feature double welded seams, weather-tight seals, and high security latches and locks. If it's a job worth doing, it's a job worth WeatherGuard. Learn more at weatherguard.com/truck. DQ presents Picture This. You're getting together with all your best friends. Now picture all your best friends are actually the delicious ingredients of the new Cake Batter Cookie Dough Blizzard. That's DQ Soft Serve, Cake Batter flavor, confetti cookie dough pieces, and DQ signature sprinkles. Oh, hey, it sounds like you got some pretty sweet friends. And that's where cookie dough. The flavor party isn't going to last forever, so hurry in and get your cake batter fix today. Only at DQ. Happy tastes good.
Sponsored by Lowe's. Lowe's is partnering with HBTV for the second season of Build It Forward.
Giving back to the community, Caesar, inspired by Lowe's Hometowns program, host Vinny and Nayaka and Shane Duffy are traveling to surprise community heroes with life-changing renovations. Watch Build It Forward all new Saturdays at 6.
I'm proud to work for Volvo Cars because we're helping build a safer, more sustainable future for everyone. My name is Tamara Thompson. I'm from South Carolina, born and raised in Sumter. I'm a quality launch supervisor at the Volvo Cars plant in Ridgefield. I'm helping build the new Volvo EX90 here. At Volvo Cars, people are at the center. We feel supported, recognized, and feel like we can grow our careers. And we're hiring. Apply now at readysc.org/Volvo.
No manufacturing experience required. Must be 18 years or older with a high school diploma or GED.
If you're hiring, it can feel like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. Like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers.
ZipRecruiter helps you find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill.
See why 4 out of 5 employees get the job on ZipRecruiter. Candidate within the first day. Now try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/FREE.
I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right. Everything you've earned, doubled. All the cash back from eating at your favorite restaurant, doubled. All the cash back from that trip where you sort of learned to snowboard, that's also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. No, Discover does it automatically. Seriously, though, see the terms and check it out for yourself. Discover.com/match. Worn out tires are a danger to you, your passengers, and other drivers. TireRack.com reminds you to inspect your tires regularly. Grab a quarter, stick it in the tread, and if you can see the top of Washington's head, it's time to replace. Go to my page, TireRack.com/Dan. Use the Tire Decision Guide to find the right tires for how and what and where you drive. Choose from the full lineup of Pirelli tires and tread confidently. TireRack.com. TireRack.com is the way tire buying should be.
Hiring statewide with huge pay raises. Correctional officers can now make $50,000 plus in their first year. Officers must be at least 18 years of age. Visit joinscdc.com to apply.
WIS-TV First Alert Traffic on 107.5 The Game.
No major slowdowns to speak of right now. We do have a disabled vehicle, I-26 westbound at Piney Grove Road. It's going to be warm this week for sure. We could see a couple late day storms today. 92 for the high, 92 tomorrow, 93 on Wednesday. Right now, though, 69 at 107.5 The Game.
Broadcasting live from the Chevrolet Studios. This is 107.5 The Game.
A great selection of new Chevys is available now at Heritage Chevrolet. The lot tour and more is on the way. So shop your hometown Chevy dealer today.
Stop by, shop online today, and see why Heritage Chevrolet makes you smile. Early game
With Bill Gunter, Preston Thorne, and Shen Jensen.
on your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the early game on 107.5 The Game. Time to head in for Bill Gunter this morning alongside Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen on the other side of the glass. We were laughing in the commercial break on the ESPN talk show this morning. They're discussing Victor Wembanyama's starting five that could beat the Monstars to save the planet. I now look when a rookie gets drafted in any league and they go through all the media stuff through the first couple of days, they're going to get asked some pretty far out there questions. I know the Wembanyama was talking about the breakfast tacos in San Antonio, and that was a big thing that people were talking about. But somebody posed this question to him at some point, and it's not a bad question to ask. And to no surprise, he has both MJ and LeBron on his team, which would make a lot of sense. But yeah, Wembanyama's starting five to beat the Monstars: MJ, LeBron, Steph, Tim Duncan, and Shaq.
Yeah, this is a real basketball show. I guess we could get into dissecting the list. But what's really funny is how Max Kellerman and Keyshawn are sitting there doing this with a straight face.
Yes.
It's just really like, I don't know if Steph's going to be able to handle the ball enough. He's not going to be able to distribute to all those guys that want the ball. And, the Monstars are a pretty formidable opponent.
Right.
Yeah, all right, ESPN. We get it. We know. We're here too.
We get it. We understand. Well, it was a big weekend for the Gamecocks as far as recruiting goes, is obviously the month of June very, very busy for all the official visits. Capped off by the huge weekend this past weekend where you had a lot of guys that are already committed to the program, as well as several notable guys that have not committed yet, led by five-star edge prospect Dylan Stewart out of the D.C. area. And from all indications, seemed like a pretty good weekend overall. Now, typically you never hear these recruits saying, wow, I had an awful time and I hated everything that they showed me. You kind of got to read between the lines a little bit when you're reading the follow-ups to all these things. And Chris and Wes have done a great job of covering all this, obviously, for GamecockCentral.com. But now it's kind of okay, they visited. Now we wait and see what happens next.
Yeah, Tyler, I know it may be just me, but all the classes, it's like, is this 24? Is this 25? Is this 28? Who is being recruited right now? What the players that were here this summer, will they be stepping on the campus anytime soon?
Right.
What is
and they obviously had one this past weekend too, and just kind of reading Wes's updates, who's out there covering. It's like, man, you got guys from 25, 26, think there may be even been a 27 guy out there. It's like, we're projecting really far ahead here when we're talking about some of these guys and how much can change over the course of 2 to 3 years.
Right, and so I'm glad everything was great. All the visits and the camps went according to plan, and everybody had a great weekend. I'm sure that was wonderful and tremendous for everybody. I just don't know who should I be paying attention to.
Right, yeah, and again, most of the guys that were on campus this weekend were for ones that were already committed for the 24 cycle, guys like Mazio Bennett, Blake Franks, Cam Pringle, among others. It's obviously strategic why you do that. We have these big committed guys while you're still trying to get these last couple of guys in your recruiting class. I mentioned Dylan Stewart, Daniel Hill, the 4-star running back out of Mississippi, also on campus, as well as Jonathan Paylor, the 4-star wide receiver from North Carolina, as well as David Busey as well, a 3-star prospect who's out of Savannah. He's listed as linebacker. I believe they would be recruiting him to play safety, though. So some pretty notable names there that, again, you're trying to make that last little push for getting commitments from them. Dylan Stewart's already released his top 5. No surprise, South Carolina's in it. Busey's expecting to commit soon. And I believe Jonathan Paylor is going to be releasing his top 5 at some point today as well.
I heard an NBA player, I'm trying to remember who it was, but they asked him about Victor Wembanyama.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I don't know, because I haven't watched him. I'm not going to watch him until he gets into the NBA. And I'm wondering if I'm going to start adapting that attitude towards recruiting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the difference between the 24 guy and the 25 guy, and who's the edge 3-star and who's the edge 4-star. Let's just get them on campus and see when they start. They don't have to play, but can we see them in a Gamecock uniform before we start making projections about them? Because I don't know who is where and what.
And it's easy for guys like Wes and Chris that are going to these camps every single week.
They see them.
Out there at these games on a week-in, week-out basis to give a little bit more insight on what these guys look like. Because, if you go to their Huddle page or whatever, their YouTube channel, guess what? It's going to be all highlights. There's not going to be them missing a tackle or, throwing an interception or something like that. It's all going to be the high points. But yeah, it can be hard to, again, kind of similar to when you read about these weekends after the fact. And yeah, everybody says they had a great time. Everybody says they love what the program has to offer and they love the coaches and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, as you kind of read between the lines of that and see who they end up picking, you kind of get more information on what they really thought of South Carolina.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. Also, what's really interesting to me is how the timeline has changed on recruiting so drastically. How, I'm not sure when this happened, but when the summer, and that Wes and Chris could probably speak to this, when the summer became the time when you do official visits and people visit the campus, that has definitely changed.
As we know, everything's moved up with the early signing day now in December. What we're going on, 5 years, I think we've been doing this, 5-6 years. So yeah, it kind of bumps everything up a little bit. And I imagine from a coaching standpoint as well, wanting to get as much of the stuff add the way you can before the season starts. And obviously, you're still hosting recruits and stuff as the season's going along. But again, with everything moving up and now with so much going on, once you get into August and the season starting in late August and September, you want to make sure you're in good standing with these guys during this time period. Again.
Oh, good question. Okay, hang on. Let me let them know you're on the phone. Okay. Thanks.
It's happen, whereas you have the recruits that are coming in. Then the coaches have to talk to the players that are on the team because they have to keep them on the team. And so there's a lot of different variables that are coming into play. Then you're running the camp. Then you got official visits. Then you have unofficial visits. And you have your players that are there. So there's a lot of things that are happening in recruiting in the summer.
Real quick, let's go out to the left side of your phone lines. David has a question in regards to recruiting. David, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Good morning. Was wondering how much plotting and jockeying that programs do to be the last official visit before the sign, because that seems to be the best decision. Appreciate what y'all do and take it off there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's a really good question. I believe, I can't remember if it's Busey or Paylor, I believe this is one of the last official visits for a couple of these guys. As we know, kind of, again, as you get kind of to the end of June, that's where a lot of those things are wrapping up. But Preston, you can
Or maybe you want to be first to make the first impression.
Right.
Because a lot of times the athletes that get on campus, they fall in love with the first thing they see, and they can't get that out of their mind, the coaches that they talk to, and maybe you'll have the longest runway. Whereas being last is also a solid position where maybe you get a chance to counter all the arguments that all the other coaches were making. And you say, well, I know you went to this school, but did they have this?
Right.
And I know you did that, but did they have this? And so there's two sort of schools of thought of where you want to be. And I imagine every coach is going to be like, yeah, well, we just want to get them on campus whenever because we know what we have to offer. But I would say either you want to be first or last, because just those two positions have the ability to make the highest chance for impressions.
And for a weekend like this, where again you had so many guys that are already committed to the program, in addition to a handful of guys that are not, what does that weekend kind of look like? And obviously we know that these guys that aren't committed yet got paired up with guys that are, as well as getting paired up with guys that are already on the team and have been here for a couple of years. How important is that pitch for these guys that have already committed for the 2024 class to these guys that are still making their decisions?
Yeah, they have to continue making those pitches. Those guys that are already there are telling them that, come on along. Look how much fun we're having. Don't you see all this? Class of 24 or whatever silly hashtag is going to be for the year.
Sure. Well, y'all didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, so we didn't necessarily have that. But there is this idea of the camaraderie of your class being all there at the same time. That does matter. And as David was saying, being last is a great position because it's very similar to I don't know if you've ever had to go into maybe buy a used car or something like that, and
sure,
you go into the room and then the closer comes in and they lock the door behind them, and then they just haggle and haggle and haggle, and it's like, I don't think I want this car. It's like, well, you sure? What
right.
about the insurance? What about the warranty? You're like, yeah, sign me up. And that's why you hear a lot of times the recruits are like,
sure,
I committed. I don't know what I committed to. I'm gonna rethink this.
Right.
And so maybe you want to be the first guy to get that commitment, or maybe you want to be the last person to get that commitment. I don't know. It's a lot of these visits are not just for them to just come and see the campus. They're trying to get commitments.
Well, and as we know that even when somebody commits to your program, until they sign that letter of intent, nothing's guaranteed.
Which is the other thing. So it's even funnier when we celebrate commitments because they mean less than they ever did, because you have to continue recruiting them. It's not as if, especially in the SEC, but this is all around the country, it's not as if when a player makes a commitment, all the other coaches are like, whoa.
Well, that's it for us.
Well, no more recruiting them.
Better delete that contact out of my phone. Not going to talk to him anymore.
South Carolina, you won fair and square. We respect the rules of the recruiting game. We will not be contacting this recruit anymore. Of course, it's not like that.
If that recruit thinks they're getting a lot of phone calls before they commit somewhere, they're getting even more after they commit somewhere.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, whoa, what can we do to change your mind?
Yeah, I heard you recruited. Congratulations. But have you ever heard of my university? And it's just on and on. Or they'll continue the conversation in the name of keeping the relationship going. Hey, Tyler, I just wanted to call and congratulate you on that commitment, man. I'm really proud of all the things that you've done. and you just go on and on and on. If you ever need to talk to somebody or whatever, know that I'm always here for you and respect you. I love you as a player, as a person, and our
Yes.
relationship will cherish them forever. So, just keep my name in there. If you ever need to talk to somebody, just don't mind calling me.
That's probably also the point where a coach at other universities says, see, you committed to so and so. Did you know this about them? Like,
Mhm.
they're giving you some dirty details and information that maybe you weren't privy to in the past. Like, I'm not saying you need to be decommit, but at least have that in mind.
Those are great guys over there. I love those guys. I worked with such and such at XY University. He's a great guy. But let me tell you something about other guy. You go on and on and on and on. We like to refer to that as dirty macking, and I'm sure
Oh,
a lot of that happens once you start commuting.
recruiting's a dirty, dirty game.
Absolutely.
We're all very, very aware of
So
that.
to that point, yes, you still have to have these guys on campus. Yes, you still have to continuously re-recruit them and to continuously check in, because I'm pretty sure that everybody else is also.
Absolutely. And again, we'll continue to keep our eyes on these guys that are on campus this weekend and see how many of them do end up committing to South Carolina as time goes along. Run to a break, come back on the other side. Hear a little bit from Coach Paris as he spoke about Gigi Jackson getting drafted at the end of last week. We'll hear what Coach Paris had to say coming up next. It is the early game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen on 107.5 The Game.
Have you missed any of the early game? You can catch up by going to the early
done, and actually probably lowest on the list are his basketball accomplishments. I expected that all those would happen, but again, as I mentioned before, just at the age he was with some of the obstacles that he had, we had a guy on our team that was 26 years old, maybe 25 last year on our team, managing all of that stuff, preparing every day, the whole rigors of the SEC slate, and doing all that and still coming out on top. And so I'm extremely proud of him, but most importantly, I'm excited for him.
Welcome into the early game on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen along with you on this Monday morning. Bill will be back in tomorrow. That was the voice of Coach Lamont Paris talking on Thursday night about Gigi Jackson after he was drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies, the 45th pick overall, going in the second round. And, you know, there's a lot we can unpack from Gigi going as late as he did. But Coach Paris talking a little bit there about his character and the person he is. And you know, I feel like we talked about this ad nauseum during the season. We have to remember Gigi Jackson is still only 18 years old. He reclassified, played the first month of the season last year as a 17-year-old. Like he should be getting ready for his first season in college had he not reclassified, obviously. So there's still plenty of maturing to go along. But, you know, Coach Paris there obviously talking about Gigi as the person. And we obviously know Gigi plays very well once you get him on to the court, and hopefully has a good transition in the NBA now.
Yeah, but here's the only issue with the he's only 17 argument is that he's only going to be 18.
Yes.
And except now he's only going to be 18 in the NBA. And Coach Paris said that, you know, we had guys that were 25 or 26. Well, that was Hayden Brown, I believe. I think that's who he's referring to. Gigi was better than Hayden Brown. So
Yes.
that's clear. Gigi may or may not be better than the other 25 or 26-year-olds who are going to be in this Memphis Grizzlies locker room. So the maturity issues that he had to work through as a young person on a freshman on a campus were going to be magnified times infinity in an NBA locker room. And so he's still going to have to make those choices of maturing very, very quickly. And in the NBA, there's not going to be, you know, Coach Paris, Kerry Rich, or any of these guys that are going to be around there to kind of hold your hand and walk you through the process. And so the curve is getting very, very steep now that he's in the NBA.
And one benefit for Gigi going into the Grizzlies organization is he's not expected to come in and be the guy from day one. You know, you look at the Spurs, you look at the Hornets, they are going to need Wembanyama, they're going to need Brandon Miller to come in and make an impact right away. Grizzlies were in the playoffs this past year. They've got Ja Morant when he can stop doing stupid things off the court. They just got Marcus Smart from the Boston Celtics. They've got established talent. So Gigi Jackson most likely going to come in, be put in the G League, at least for the first year, and have time to develop, continue to mature and hone his basketball craft. And eventually, and, you know, hopefully not too long of a period of time, he will be on that main roster. But again, not expected to come in and have to be the guy right away.
Yeah, and Memphis is a place where they really care about NBA basketball.
Yes.
You know, the grit and grind, and they love that team down there. So if he's looking for someplace that has a hometown feel to it, where the people, it's a small enough town where there's a basketball community, I think it's a great spot. They run the organization very well.
Yes.
As we can see, aside from Ja acting out, you know, you saw Dylan Brooks when he was he did his thing, and then they were like, yeah, we're going to move on from that very quickly.
And the thing about Ja Morant, all the stuff that he's done that's got him in trouble has happened off the court, away from the facility. You know, we don't hear about him being a terrible teammate or fighting guys in the locker room, stuff like that. So within the building of the walls of the facility, things are good.
Yeah, and also they made a tremendous upgrade, in my opinion, when they went and got Marcus Smart.
Yes.
They basically got who Dylan Brooks was supposed to be.
Sure.
Somebody that can play defense, make the three-pointer. He's going to be a leader in the locker room. I'm sort of kind of wondering what Boston was thinking, because now I don't think they have any heart or any soul. He was the heart of that soul. Marcus Smart is a Memphis basketball player. He could have played on those teams with Zebo and, you know, just those sort of grinded out. They're not really very skilled, but they play very hard.
Right.
And everybody loves them. So if there was an organization that he had to go to, whether, you know, you think about the top organizations, the Grizzlies is a very well-run good place to be for a basketball player.
Right. One more cut here, Jen. As we heard from Coach Paris last night, I get Jen to play cut number 4. This is Coach Paris talking about how Gigi getting drafted helps the program. Oh, all right. Get that in just a second. Cut number 4, Jen. Yeah, real quick. Again, this is Coach Paris talking about how this helps the program.
I'm really not as concerned with that. I'm here to enjoy Gigi and his family and their moment. It's nice that we put Gigi in position to perform as a player. And because without that, a lot of this doesn't happen. We had a lot of belief in him. He earned all that. He earned our trust. And so we put him in position to do some things, and he delivered on that. So, again, it's not really – I don't want this to be about us. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for his family, and I just want to be here to support him and them in any way I can.
One thing that can't be overlooked is Gigi Jackson was projected as a lottery pick coming out of high school. And if we would have still been able to have guys getting drafted out of high school, he likely would have been one of those first names called. Comes South Carolina, plays a year. And yes, he had his own share of issues, the locker room stuff, not wanting to be in the huddle, all that. Regardless, he still dropped into the second round, several picks lower than anybody expected him to be. And that is, at the end of the day, what most people are going to see as a reflection on the South Carolina program itself. And again, he still got drafted in the second round. That's still good. He's still going to make plenty of money. He should be around the league for a long time. But that's something that Coach Paris is going to have to answer a lot of questions about as time goes on, not only from the media and stuff like that, but other potential high-profile recruits saying, hey, if I come to you, I don't want to lose. I don't want my stock to drop over the course of a year.
Yeah, I disagree with Coach Paris in that concept. I mean, I understand that you're being there to support Gigi in that moment, but it is about the program.
Yeah.
Because every program boasts. When I go to read Coach Paris's bio, or I read any coach's bio, it's going to say, this guy played for him. This guy played for him. Put this many players in the NBA. These accomplishments. So, yes, it is. If it's not about the program, then what is it about?
Sure.
So every time a player gets drafted from a program and goes and plays at the next level, one, you see their college when they get mentioned. Two, everybody gets to say, oh, that's the kid from South Carolina whenever they're watching. Or they'll say, where'd that guy come from, right? So it is about the program. We hear all these players that get drafted about, oh, he's a Duke guy, right? You hear that all the time. So when you're talking about establishing a program, yes, it 100% is about the program when a guy gets drafted. We haven't had many guys drafted from this program in a long time since Sin was drafted in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
That was years ago now. He represents South Carolina.
Yes.
So I disagree with that idea of saying that it's not about the program. It is about the program. And if the program has worked for the player would be represented. So you saw when I was, as I'm prone to do, looking at the fashion choices, when Gigi had his suit on, he opened his shirt.
Yep.
He opened his shirt and he hid his jacket, and he had all the South Carolina greats listed on his jersey, saying that he wanted to add and be part of that number.
Sure.
So it is, of course, it is part of the program's legacy when you have players who are drafted. So I disagree with that. It is about the program, and hopefully they all will be representing the program.
Absolutely. We'll continue this conversation as the show goes along. First, though, I want to thank our friends, as always, over at Integrated Media for their great support of the show.
Yeah, we want to always thank our folks at Integrated Media. I've been telling you to get your summers ready. The dog days of summer are here, and it's time for you to sit outside and enjoy the unseasonably cool weather that we've had. So get your Samsung Terrace TVs, get them waterproofed, or get your outdoor speakers for TVs and music, or Wi-Fi that works indoors and outdoors. My favorite, controlling all your devices from just one remote. So set up your home theater or adjust your thermostat or monitor your security systems from your cell phone. Integrated Media is the company that you need to call. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or catch them online at integratedmediainc.com. That's online at integratedmediainc.com.
All right, we got some of y'all weighing in on the hottest sporting events you've ever attended. We'll talk about that next. You're listening to The Early Game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen on 107.5 The Game.
Sponsored by Molina Healthcare. Feel better with Molina Healthcare.
Live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios, this is 107.5 The Game.
Discover Herndon Certified, Herndon Chevrolet's premier used car warranty. Shop with complete confidence knowing Herndon Chevrolet has got you covered.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile.
The early game
With Bill Gunter, Preston Thorne, and Jen Jensen
on your home of the Gamecocks.
107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the early game here on 107.5 Game. Tyler Redhead in for Bill Gunter this morning, alongside Preston Thorne and Jen Jensen producing on the other side of the glass. I posed this question at the top of the show, talking about the weather. Hottest sporting event you've ever attended? A lot of you weighed in on the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. Preston, you can probably speak to this one. The Quincy Carter game in 2001 at Willie B. It's a very hot, but worth it.
Yeah, it was extreme. It was blazing hot. especially when you're not playing and you're just standing there. Because had a great spectator's view. I was on the squad. Yes, I was on the team, but I was watching, and very hot.
So you would have been cooler running around a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. If you can just move around a little bit, maybe get some air blowing, some sweat going, things of that nature.
I guess if nothing else, it distracts you from thinking about how
hot it is. Like, man, it's hot. And Coach Holtz, if you go back and watch that grainy footage, which I think is somewhere out there on YouTube, we had to wear the pro socks.
Okay.
Where they had to be up to your knees at all times.
No,
So,
not even a little bit of skin.
No.
That sounds so hot.
Pro socks all the way to your knees, all time, every time.
And something that's kind of funny to think about, shoulder pads were bigger back then.
Shoulder pads were bigger, jerseys were bigger,
yes,
and heavier. It was like a mesh, and it just you got them wet, and it just sort of weighed you down.
And I mean, I know like the technology of undershirts and stuff has come a long way, but I don't think you guys had like the mesh Under Armour.
We were
cool gear shirts
we were on the
under
precipice of Under Armour. It was like, let me get one of those new tight shirts. So we hadn't quite made it to Under Armour yet. So there was a lot of cotton, a lot of wet, heavy cotton, a lot of sweat, but it was definitely worth it.
Let's see here. Todd weighs in, says mid-September 2019, Alabama came to town. Very hot day at Williams-Brice for that one as well.
Yeah, and it was a long day also. But that was the day we was like, man, this Helinski guy might be the guy.
Here's one that I know Jen can speak to. Southern 500. Darlington doesn't remember the year. This is nameless texter saying we could have fried an egg on the metal stands there, but yes, some hot days back in Darlington. Before they used to run the Southern 500 at night, used to run it in the middle of the day in early September.
Hot.
Very
and
hot
you think
days
it's hot
out
for you
there.
in the stands. Think of the guys in the cars.
Well, and I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I was out there for all three races that weekend, and that Xfinity race on Saturday, it was very hot with very little cloud cover. And again, that was only like 80 some odd degrees. So can't imagine what it's like once you get down into September when you're getting close to 100 degrees.
That explains all the pools, all the personal pools we saw in the infield.
Oh, yeah.
People were laying around. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, they're
cool off any way you can, or you just drink a lot of beer in the stands. You forget about the heat.
Yeah. But beer and heat don't mix very well. So
that's right.
It's a tough situation.
All right, 1 hour down, 2 more to go. We'll talk a little bit of baseball on the other side. You're listening to the early game, Tyler, Preston, and Jen here on 107.5 The Game.
where Terry ate my donuts for my birthday. But a year ago, when Lauren DoorDashed me donuts down here for my birthday, and there was confusion and they got left.
Former Gamecock Preston Thorne.
And like on air, they're like joking about it, and they're talking about how they're eating them and enjoying them.
And Jen Jensen.
Well, as they should, because I mean, I definitely
They don't go bad overnight.
Well, they're not as fresh, and I feel sure that probably Lauren was thinking, man, you know, this would be really nice. He can have some donuts. He can share with his coworkers.
Who are you defending right now? Which person are you defending?
I'm trying to remember.
Anybody but me is clearly what you're doing here. That's the name of the early game. Just defend anybody but Gunner.
But
no way he was in the right on this.
On your home of the Gamecocks.
The theme of this show. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
107.5 The Game.
Brings up Ty Evans, the home run hitter, back in the second. Breaking ball to start, and Evans skies this one down the line and left toward the corner. Pearson back at the wall. That ball is gone! It's a grand slam for Evans!
And welcome into hour number 2 on the early game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunter this morning alongside Preston and Jen. That was the call yesterday on ESPN as Ty Evans hits a grand slam for the Florida Gators to add to what was a lot of runs for them as they cruised to a 24-4 victory over LSU to even the College World Series final at 1 game apiece, and both teams getting ready for game number 3 coming up tonight at 7 o'clock to decide the national champion. We had a fun, tight game on Saturday night. Yesterday was the complete opposite. Florida just absolutely dominating the Tigers out there in Omaha.
Okay, I didn't watch the game. Was there a point where you saw them throw in the towel?
I don't want to necessarily say throw in the towel, but you can definitely see just from the body language, like, you know, the game's over, because I think I'm looking at the box score here. They were down 12-2 after 6 innings.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like
a lot of
probably
errors.
A lot of
errors are what it's not like, oh man, they're just hitting really well. I mean, their defense contributed to that loss for sure.
Yeah, 5 total errors for LSU in that game. And it gets to the point where now, unfortunately, for LSU in the postseason, there's no mercy rule. You don't end the game after 7 innings just because you're down by 10 runs. So you had to go through the process of 9 innings in that game. They ended up giving up 9 runs over the course of the final 2 innings there. So yeah, it kind of gets to the point like, all right, we're going to put some subs in, at least allow our guys to rest a little bit and hope for better in game number 3.
Yeah, so that's where I like the strategic component. And I was joking with you, but is there a way that in playing a series that it would be the cumulative scores of the series is the winner?
Oh wow!
Now,
you know what I'm saying?
If that were the case,
I kind of feel like
Florida would have a very tough challenge ahead of them tonight.
Because that's what I'm wondering. Because I wonder if there's a point where they just, all right, we'll just chalk it up. We're gonna go back to game 3, and then you don't have to play the whole game. And so I'm just wondering. That all I'm saying is just this idea of you can just throw away a middle game because it doesn't matter.
So, and I'm not a soccer expert, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this on the Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100, but I believe soccer does something similar where they do take into account like how many goals you have scored when like determining like standings and stuff like that. I know Atlanta United had something going on with that a couple of years ago, but I think they were trying to get into maybe the Gold Cup. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on this because I might be speaking completely incorrectly on this, but I think soccer does have some element of that in how they determine certain things. But as far as baseball goes, that is at least not on the table as of yet. But, you know, it's definitely an interesting concept, and Florida would have gone a long way in clinching the national championship if that were the case yesterday.
Let's bring it to the competition committee because there is a strategic aspect to it, because at a certain point at 12-2, you just like, I'm not going to pitch this guy, or I'm going to get myself some rest. Now all of a sudden your guys are resting for the next game, and it's just an interesting dynamic. Obviously, I do like the idea, but this is why I really like the concept of a series.
Yes,
because in football, we've seen games where, you know, it's 2 evenly matched teams, and then one team just comes out and for whatever reason they just don't have it that day. They might drop a couple of passes, make a couple of uncharacteristic fumbles, and in the game, and you don't really get you don't get a chance to see who's actually better. You know who's better that day,
Sure,
but you don't know who's better. So the idea of having a series allows for games like this where that's obviously not a true representative of who that team is, but it happens from time to time. And I would hate just a snowball of bad performances to be the thing that determines whether or not you're the champion.
Yeah, and with the postseason in college baseball, you don't see nearly as many of those huge upsets or Cinderella stories. And I know we talked a lot about Oral Roberts making it all the way to the College World Series this year because that's just something you don't see a lot. Stony Brook and Fresno State were the only two other 4 seeds to have made it that far because, again, when you play the series through regionals, through super regionals, it usually weeds out the better teams to get it all the way to Omaha. And then obviously when you get to the finals of the World Series itself, 2 very good, pretty evenly matched teams that are going to be playing in their 3rd game coming up tonight to determine it all. Big question for tonight is, can Paul Skeens go? He's thrown over 120 pitches in his last 2 outings. In the past 7 days alone, he pitched in that last game against Wake Forest a couple days ago. Will he start? Maybe, maybe not. But I imagine, if nothing else, we'll see him in some capacity tonight. He's your best player. It's your final game of the season. Don't have to worry about pitching again a week from now. You got to get him on the field some kind of way.
Yeah. So do you start him? And that's if it doesn't go well, that's sort of like the biggest bullet that you have, or do you hold it when times are getting a little shaky? I don't know. This is all the strategic part of the conversation.
Yeah, and no surprise, I was listening to Coach Jay Johnson's press conference before we started the show this morning, and he gave no answer one way or the other. He said we're just going to have to evaluate things come Monday morning and see who's going to be available, and that's obviously smart because you don't want to tip your cap to Florida if you don't have to. We know Jack Caglione is going to get the start for Florida tonight, so it should be a very very good matchup. And I think a lot of us expected this series to go to 3 games, and that's what we're getting out of it.
Besides all of that, LSU has a pitcher who I believe he wears the biggest uniform on the team.
He's a big guy.
The Beast.
That his nickname?
I don't know. That's what I'm calling
That's
him.
what we call him. I like this guy. I would like to see him move forward. So, as I said, I didn't have a story of who I was cheering for or who I was cheering against, but I would like to see him maybe close this one out.
I saw somebody tweeted this out yesterday that, Ole Miss, when they won their national championship, I think on average weight, they were like the heaviest team in Omaha last year. And I believe LSU is the same way this year. So
there's some correlation.
Thick boy baseball goes a long way.
All right. Well, yeah, I would have been an advocate for that a long time ago, man. I don't know what's ahead of my time.
LSU has several guys on their team that look like they should be playing beer league softball. Cade Beloso, who had a big home run the other night in game number 1, looks like your average frat dude that's ready to drink a couple beers and hit some home runs at the softball game on Tuesdays.
He has the stash to match.
Yes,
too.
he does.
Yes. Yeah, he is just a big boy. Solid.
A barrel of.
That's where that power comes from. Is the stomach.
I like it because they have him, and I'm parsing on names, but then they have the guy who's going to be is it Cruz?
Dylan Cruz.
Yeah,
yes.
Dylan Cruz, who's otherworldly draft pick, and you look at him and he got the chiseled jaw and he looks like he's made out of granite, and it just shows you that there's room for everybody in a sport like this. Everybody, we bring all body types. We include everybody in this sport.
Yeah, baseball is not the same degree of 2 ends of the spectrum as like football can be, because there's always like there's a picture a couple years ago of like DK Metcalf, and like without his shirt on, he's just ripped, got all these tattoos, and then like a picture of Rodrigo Blankenship, this skinny little guy wearing goggles. Like these 2 guys played the same sport.
Correct.
Not to the same degree in baseball, but you see a little glimpse of that, at least at the college level.
Yeah, you could definitely see it. So I guess
Riley Cooper, is that the kid's name?
Yes.
Yes.
The pitcher.
Yes. So with that being said, I think
not the former football player.
Not him. No. So I'm
correct.
gonna throw my support behind LSU. Let's see how this one turns out.
Elsewhere in baseball on Saturday.
Oh man, I know where you're going with this one.
The Los Angeles Angels defeated the Rockies 25-1.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that's a new franchise record. What?
Not shocking at all. In college baseball, you'll see high scoring games where, South Carolina can play a mid-major team on a Tuesday night. No surprise they run rule them. very rarely do we see these kind of things in Major League Baseball. Look, the Rockies are very bad this season. Angels, obviously very good, got a lot of talent on the team with guys like Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Man, they just took them to the woodshed.
Yeah, and there's no way around it because there's no mercy rule in Major League Baseball. You know, they get into the part where they start throwing position players out there, and then everybody's just trying to get the misery done. And then the thing about baseball is you have to come back and play again tomorrow. It's not even as if we get a chance to rest on this. There's no clock that you can't sit on the clock and dribble the ball out or hold it or anything like that. You just gotta take it.
Well, I guess now that they have the pitch clock, you can just repeatedly get violations and just end the game that way.
That does help a little bit, though. But
then the Rockies came back and won yesterday 4-3. So
it all balances out.
But yeah, just bizarre.
Again.
I mean, there was one inning that I think they ran 13 runs in an inning.
Yeah. So the third inning they scored 13 runs.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Cumulative scores.
And they followed that up in the 8th inning with 8 runs, or 4th inning with 8 runs.
Yeah.
I mean, and would you believe, I talked about Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Would you believe Shohei Ohtani only went 1 for 7 in that game?
1 for 7. Combined, which is obviously for him is 1 for 7. That's like, wow, what was he doing that year?
Right. Off night. Now Mike Trout did go 3 for 3 with a home run, but he left the game in the 4th inning, I believe with an injury. So like for at least half this game, they didn't have production from their two best players.
That is a flip-flop from where the Angels' usual box score is, because normally is Shohei Ohtani 3 for 4, 2-run home run, a triple.
Yep.
Mike Trout 2 home runs, a triple. Angels lose 3-1 or something like that.
Yes.
So a little bit of a change for them.
Yeah. And the funny thing about this, and anytime the Angels get brought up, is, they have these 2 great players. And we saw them, come down to those 2 in the World Baseball Classic before the Major League season began. Outside of the highlights, this may be all you see about these guys this year. The All-Star game coming up in a couple weeks, to see them there. But the Angels don't do very well when it comes to making the postseason, as we continue to see the career of these 2 guys fall by the wayside as they spend more time out there.
If I'm I know Trout signed a really long deal. Shohei Ohtani is going to be coming up on free agency, which I heard that the Braves were flirting there.
There's rumors.
I heard there was some flirtation there.
I'd be very excited about that.
If you should be, because I can't believe we're just letting this pass by, how this dude is pitching and hitting at the clip that he's hitting. And we're just like, oh, well. They're like, no, man, this is literally never happened in the game before.
I saw somebody put this into perspective. They were responding to a tweet of because Ohtani gone out there, had a good game the other night and then pitched really, really well. And they said, think about if Patrick Mahomes went on defense and had 3 sacks in a game. That's essentially what Ohtani does on a consistent basis.
It is phenomenal. The idea that somebody is capable of doing this at a major league level. And they told us he was going to do this.
Yes.
But everybody was like, yeah, whatever, man. That's what sure he can do it in Japan.
Sure.
No way he'll be able to do it here. Then he did it his rookie year. And it was like, yeah, well, that's his rookie year.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to keep that up. He's going to have to choose eventually.
And every player in Major League Baseball has played every position at some point.
Of course.
Probably really, really good at all those positions. And yeah, even in guys like in college, like Jack Caglione, who can hit and pitch as well. It's like, okay, yeah, that's at the college level. Let's see you do it against the best of the best. So when somebody like Ohtani can break through and continue to do that, it is a really big deal.
And there's only been one. I hope Shohei is maybe a sign of the future that maybe we'll let some more players be 2-way players. Because I think there's people who are capable of it, but
absolutely.
You just sort of get, you get siphoned into one way or the other. But I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, as you go along with your baseball career, you kind of get put into a position of specialization.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, if you're going to be a pitcher, you're going to focus on pitching, especially now, Major League Baseball having the designated hitter across both leagues, where you don't have to worry about hitting if you're a pitcher. It's like, okay, you're going to come in, you're going to do nothing but pitch. You're not going to worry about anything else. Same thing with being in the field and hitting. It's like, all right, you're going to be an outfielder and we're going to focus on hitting all the time. Like, again, outside of playing in Japan, very rarely does that stuff get focused on where you can do more than one thing usually.
Yeah, it's tremendous. Again, if you call yourself a baseball fan, or if you haven't been, maybe you're not on the baseball bandwagon, watch this guy, because he is fantastic. And I would say if the Braves could make that happen, that'd be nice.
Speaking of the Braves and players to watch, I got the first chance to really see Ellie De La Cruz in action over the weekend. And he's only been in the majors for a couple of weeks, but he has set the world on fire in his short time with the Reds. Hits for the cycle against the Braves on Friday night. This guy's really, really fun to watch. And again, still very early on in his major league career, but I think he's going to be a name that we're going to be talking about for a very long time. And also shout out to the Braves taking 2 of 3 against the Reds, bringing their winning streak to an end over the weekend.
Yeah, he's looks like he's going to be phenomenal. He plays the game with a flair.
He's like 6'6".
That's the thing. When I seen him sort of galloping around the base path, I was like, look at this guy. He looks a little bit different.
He's not a point guard for the Cavs.
He looks a little bit different. And I don't know how long they've been sitting on him. Obviously, I'm not familiar with the Reds farm system, but I'm sure they've been waiting for this guy to come for a long time. So being that he's in the league and he's so far, he'll hit a little slump here eventually, but he's been as advertised to this point.
Absolutely. Coming up next, we will jump into Thorns, Buds, and Roses as Preston has to dip out a little bit earlier this morning. You're listening to The Early Game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen on 107.5 The Game.
We are very
seen anything with new confirmed collisions, anything really problematic, causing big backups on our heavily traveled roadways and interstates. A good Monday to you as we rolled along. Make sure you keep listening for any major changes. This has been a WIS First Alert Traffic Update. I'm meteorologist Tony Schiavaroli. Make it a great travel day.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. This is 107.5 The Game.
A great selection of new Chevys is available now at Herndon Chevrolet. The lot is packed with inventory and more is on the way. So shop your hometown Chevy dealer today.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. The Early Game with Bill Gunter.
Former Gamecock Preston Thorne.
And Jen Jensen on your home of the Gamecocks.
107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen along with you. Time to jump in to my favorite segment here on the early game. It is Thorns, Buds, and Roses.
It's time for Thorns, Buds, and Roses with Preston Thorne on the Early Game. 107.5 The Game.
Well, Tyler, we're back, and I have to start with the old famous saying. Have you ever heard the saying, when it's too loud, you're just too old?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm officially too old, Tyler. Last night was the BET Awards,
okay,
which is a summer staple. It comes on around the same time every year, and the award shows are awesome. You get to see all the stars in one place. You get to see the performances. You hear who's nominated. You get to see all the people dressed up. And it is a shocking moment when you realize you don't know anybody.
Oh no!
It's a tragedy. Last night was supposed to be special because they were honoring 50 years of hip hop, and it's supposed to be this wonderful, wonderful thing that's happening. And all I kept playing this reoccurring game of who that is. I don't know who the people are. If I do know who they are, I don't know how to pronounce their names. I can't pick them out of a lineup. It's come at me so fast.
I'm sorry.
Are you like Googling as you're watching this?
It's so sad, man.
Who is this person? Why are they famous?
You get that point where you're like, I've heard that song. Oh, that's who sings that song. You know, that kind of concept.
Never heard of that band or that artist.
Yeah,
before.
yeah. And it happens. And I think award shows, this happens. It's the best gauge of how old you actually are, because you find yourself when all your favorite artists, as myself, I saw Busta Rhymes get the Career Lifetime Achievement Award.
That hurts.
And it's like, oh gosh. Wait a second.
Lifetime achievement?
What's happening? Or even worse, RIP. Some of your favorite artists are in the in memoriam part of the show.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that's my guy or that's my girl. And you start to see that. It's tough, but it's fair. It's what it is. Time keeps moving. Hip hop is a young man and women's game, and that's how it should be. For all us olds, we just have to realize it's not a time. And maybe we can just soothe ourselves to the bumper musics of Juvenile and 400 Degrees and things of that nature.
You're now in the position where you can say, well, back in my day,
exactly,
it used to be like this.
I firmly
we had so and so. Y'all just have these people.
Firmly have entered back in my day territory where it's like, oh, they're just doing that. Well, such and such did that way back when. You don't know nothing about that. So I'm finding myself on that. So those are my thorns because I just figured out you're actually old. Buds, GG Jackson. Congratulations on getting drafted, but now the work really starts. You say this is what you always wanted? Well, here it is. I think you got planned into a fertile garden going to the Memphis Grizzlies. It's a town that loves basketball, and they will love you as long as you put in the effort and determination that they have come to expect out of hometown heroes like Zebo, Mike Conley. Those guys really exhibit what Memphis basketball is about. But you're going to have to grow up. Not just physically, but mentally. The NBA is different. These are grown men playing with kids, mortgages, families, all types of things that are happening. You're going to have to grow into that locker room. I think you're in a great spot to be grown. Hopefully, here's to a long, growing, budding career for you, GG Jackson. Congratulations. Last but not least, Tyler, I need 27 roses.
Why is that?
27 ounces, all that stands between LSU and Florida winning the national championship, or should I say the SEC championship all over again.
Yeah, that is kind of nice to see. It's an all SEC.
It's all SEC again. We can feel proud of them. I'm personally cheering for LSU, as I stated, because thick boy baseball is in, and I've been an advocate for that forever.
Sure.
But as long as the SEC wins, we can all go to bed thinking like, we beat both of those teams and maybe we actually did belong in Omaha. So there's 27 outs. We'll see. There's one more game. All of the season comes down to these last 9 innings, man. And so I'm going to tune in for this one. I'm gonna see what it's all about.
How satisfied do you think Greg Sankey has been this weekend watching this series? Because he can't lose either way.
He's 100% satisfied. He's gonna shoot the beam up in the air like the Batman signal and let everybody know.
The SEC signals right up there in the
SEC
sky.
is ready to fly. So, Tyler, hopefully you can get old, because then, the alternative that is not good. So you want to get old so that you can watch your award shows and feel old watching them.
Well,
Gigi, congratulations on your career, and SEC forever and always.
I'd have to start watching award shows to begin with. That's not really my thing.
Exactly. Also, that's another indication of being old. You're like, oh, the award shows are on tonight.
One of those ones last year, my wife was watching it, and it was like Jay-Z did this really long performance. They were like out on a street somewhere. That's the only thing I remember from it. I'm like, is this what all award shows are like?
Yeah. That was the Grammys. That was the Grammys. And it was good.
See, I don't know anything about this stuff.
It was Jay-Z being elder statesman of the Grammys.
Yeah, and it went on for a really long time.
Also, yeah, when Jay-Z was young, it's like, we don't need the Grammys. We're too young and cool for the Grammys. Now it's like, I want to go to the Grammys.
I'll take the Grammy.
Because I'm old now. Well, Tyler, those are thorns, buds, and roses for this week.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Again,
sir.
I usually hear this segment driving in at 8:15 on Monday mornings. I always look forward to it.
Thank
Always
you, sir.
a blast.
Thank you, sir.
All right, well, we'll let you get out of here. Going to be talking to Jamie Bradford coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But coming up next, talking a lot about expansion in college football. Where does it end? Kirk Herbstreit had some interesting thoughts on this. I'll talk about that next. You're listening to The Early Game. Tyler, Preston, and Jen here on 107.5 The Game.
Game on demand podcast menu. Sponsored by Lexington Orthopedics and
day.
What you're talking about.
Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the early game on 107.5 The Game. Tyler Head along with you, Jen Jensen on the other side of the glass. Preston had to bounce a little bit early this morning. Be back in tomorrow morning with Bill. Be talking to Jamie Bradford coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Looking out the window here at Gervais Street, it has started raining. Obviously, we had a nice hot weekend where the rain finally stayed away after just pouring on us for it seemed like the entire week last week. And unfortunately, Jen, the rain's back.
Well, and we weren't really supposed to necessarily see any rain until this afternoon. Like there's a chance for some kind of heavier storms this afternoon and then maybe again tonight. So there's some people are kind of scratching their heads because actually around the dam, I had just read some things on Twitter where there was actually some, as they were deeming it, Chick-fil-A ice sized hail.
Oh no.
So it's just kind of come out of nowhere. It just popped up and looking at a meteorologist's pictures, some very odd clouds, throughout Columbia this morning, kind of rippling looking clouds. So
Yeah.
it's turned into kind of a weird, unexpected morning commute.
Well, be mindful of that as you're out driving around Gervais Street, not underwater just quite yet, but we obviously know it can once that rain really starts to pick up. So just be mindful of that as you're out and about this morning, and hopefully you can avoid any hail that might be in the area. I teased this before the break there. Kirk Herbstreit was on the Pat McAfee show last week, and he was talking about a number of things, favorites for the national championship. He picked Alabama, talking about 2023 being kind of a lame duck year for college football as we look ahead to 2024 with, of course, the expansions of the SEC, the Big Ten, and the 12-team college football playoff finally coming to fruition. Off of that, he gave his thoughts on where expansion goes from here. And I want to let you listen to a little bit of what Kirk Herbstreit had to say last week. Jen, if you could play that cut for me.
What people are underestimating is how much more movement there's going to be in the realignment. I feel like the Big Ten and the SEC, who are the big pillars in this whole thing, I just feel like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but they're not staying at 16. They're going to go to at least 20. And so who's going where, right? I mean, where's North Carolina going? Where's Oregon going? Where's Washington going? Where's Clemson going to end up? Where's Florida State going to go? Where's Miami? There's just so much to me that's fascinating that I'm sure it won't happen. Maybe it will during the season, but I'm guessing it happens after this year.
So much has changed in the world of college football in the past 5 years, but really in the past decade, when you really kind of look at it from a 10,000 foot view, I guess. And what Kirk Herbstreit brings up there isn't really out of the realm of possibility, as we are getting set to have 2 of the Power 5 conferences with 16 teams starting in 2024. Of course, Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, and then you have Southern Cal and UCLA going to the Big Ten. And we've never had conferences this big, at least in the modern era of college football. So that kind of opens the door to a lot of unknowns and a lot of new things in respect to those 2 conferences. And we obviously know both conferences going to be abandoning the divisional model, where it's just going to simply be, okay, what 2 teams have the best winning percentage in conference, and those will be the ones that will be playing for the respective conference championships at the end of the season. But the point that he brings up there's no reason to think that this stuff isn't going to stop, because obviously it all boils down to money at the end of the day. College football ratings continue to go up, revenue continues to go up, and all these schools are going to continue to look out for their best interest. And if that means North Carolina goes and joins the Big Ten and the SEC, they're going to do that. And, unfortunately, the tradition of college football continues to become less and less, where, for the longest time, really the first 100+ years of college football, everything was steeped in geography and the tradition of conferences. And, you had the Southeastern Conference, you had the Southwestern Conference, you had the at that point, the Pac-10, the Big Ten, the Big East was around until about a decade ago. obviously the ACC, where, you know, everything was hyper focused in certain areas of the country, and those are the schools that you played. And when you look at expansion and how slow it was over a period of time, go back to 30 years ago when South Carolina and Arkansas joined the SEC, that was a huge deal. And that the SEC was the first one to kind of go into that divisional split and have a conference championship game. And that really changed college football as the other conferences eventually adapted and started doing that same thing as well. And I think we're on the cusp of seeing similar things when we talk about a 16 team conference for the SEC and the Big Ten starting in 2024 and what that could mean going forward. Now, again, when you look at the divisionless model of those two conferences, you can still pretty easily work out the best two teams for going to your respective conference championship games when you have 16. Yes, not everybody will get to play not everyone will get to play everyone like you see in the Big 12 right now, but you're still going to have a pretty good idea of who those best two teams are. But let's say the SEC goes to 20 teams in, I don't know, 2028 or 2030 or something like that. That muddies the waters a little bit, because then if the SEC is at 9 conference games at that point in time, you're still talking about half the league that you would not be able to face during your regular conference slate, and that starts to open up the question of, okay, do you have your own individual playoffs within the conference to determine your conference champion? And I know that seems like a very far out there concept, but again, with how much of things have changed in college football in just the past decade alone, I wouldn't put it past these conferences or the college football playoff committee to implement something like this down the line. And again, it does sound crazy right now, but it could be something very realistic within the next 10 years or so, especially when we talk about jumping into the 12-team college football playoff in 2024. And when you look right now, we have entering this year where you're going to have BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and Central Florida joining the Big 12. We're up to 69 Power 5 schools across the 5 power conferences. And then you have, Notre Dame, who kind of is the odd team out there, being an independent with ties to the ACC, obviously. So, you kind of wonder, if things expand, how do those numbers work out? Assuming we don't add any more teams to the list of Power 5 schools, again, at 69. Math would tell you that works out to about 14 teams per conference, which is where just about all of them are at this point in time. But obviously, with the 2 leagues going to 16 in 2024, those numbers are not going to shrink. My question with all this is, if we continue to grow, does the Pac-12 eventually go under? And it's been well documented the Pac-12 is struggling a lot with trying to figure out its television package. They just lost 2 of their biggest brands in Southern Cal and UCLA again to the Big Ten starting in 2024. And it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, until other schools like Stanford, like Colorado, like Arizona eventually jump ship themselves, because they're very sought after state universities that the Big 10, the Big 12, heck, maybe even the SEC or the ACC would be willing to take on. And again, for those schools, when you look out for your best interest at the end of the day, going literally anywhere is going to guarantee that you make more money. So that's something else on the horizon, I feel like, in the next maybe 5 to 10 years. There may not be a Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever you want to call it, because the numbers are going to go down when you lose to California schools there. Like, we could be realistically talking about a Power 4 in a couple of years. And at that point in time, okay, are you splitting it up where you have 3 leagues with 20, 22 teams or something like that, and then the other one just kind of picks up the slack with the rest of the teams? Like, I don't know. And again, I'm throwing a lot of things out there, but that's kind of where we are with college football, is the sky's really kind of the limit. And again, at the end of the day, when money and television ratings and all that kind of stuff control everything, there's no limit to what can change. And if you're somebody that's very, steeped in tradition and doesn't like to see college football changing the way that it is, I got bad news for you, that you better enjoy the 2023 season as much as you can, because more tradition will continue to unfortunately go out the window as time goes along. And again, 12-team playoff coming in 2024, something that I was pretty against when it was initially first proposed. But as I've learned more about the way that they're going to do it. You're telling me I'm going to get more meaningful college football in the month of December? I'm not going to complain about that. Now, yes, is it a far cry from where we were 10, 15 years ago? Absolutely. But again, it's kind of one of those things that if you're going to enjoy college football, you have to adapt and change with the times and just enjoy it for what it is and understand that that's how the champion is determined. And hopefully your team is the one that is taking part in that at the end of the day. But going to be very, very interesting to see what the next big change in college football is and to see if what Kirk Herbstreit mentioned there, eventually these conferences get to maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 teams somewhere down the line. Coming up next, I'll wrap up the second hour of the early game. Jen and I talk a little bit of racing as NASCAR Cup Series was in action late last night in Nashville. And we'll talk about who won and what's next for the Cup Series. You're listening to the early game with Tyler and Jen here on 107.5 The Game.
So in that commercial, I don't think Sosa really enjoyed that commercial much because he has to run up a hill, and I don't know if he was very happy about running up that hill. The dog food must be tremendous. Cause
And Jen Jensen.
He ran up the hill because there was a cupcake at the top of the hill. That's what it was.
Shout out to Sosa.
On your home of the Gamecocks.
The theme of this show. I don't know what happened.
107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunter this morning. Jen Jensen on the other side of the class. Preston had to bounce, head to a meeting this morning. So it's me riding solo here in the Herndon Chevrolet studios and working to get Jamie Bradford on the line, talk a little bit of Gamecocks with him as plenty has gone on this past week since last time Jamie Bradford was on here. And I believe we got Jamie ready to go, Jen?
He is.
All right. Now we'll welcome in Jamie Bradford. And Jamie, go ahead and say this is Tyler Head. I know you're usually used to dealing with Bill Gunter, so sorry to disappoint you on this
This will be
Monday
much more
morning.
pleasant for
that it's
you.
only me in here to talk to you.
Yeah, no, this makes it a lot better. It's all good, man. I'll keep me as long as you need me. I usually, tell Bill at some point in time I can only take so much, so it's all good. You're good.
Understandable. I guess we can all only take so much of Bill, right?
That's
Yes.
right, man.
Well, plenty has happened in the past week since you were last on here, and I'll start off with this: the pitching coach situation for South Carolina. You have Justin Parker departing for Mississippi State to take the same position. Matt Williams coming in from Liberty as the new coach. We'll focus on Justin Parker for a second here. This is a position that's had quite a few guys in there over the first couple of years under Mark Kingston. Surprised at all that Justin Parker decided to take the same spot in Mississippi State, a program that does need a lot of help right now?
Yeah, they do, and it's a really interesting situation because first of all, he's a heck of a pitching coach, and I know he really didn't want to leave Columbia. With that said, the money he's getting there is you have to do that. You have to do that, and that's not I know that there was a portion of the fan base that was really frustrated because they thought that maybe Coach Tanner or Coach Kingston or both or whomever just weren't willing to pay this guy, and that's not true. They were willing to pay him, and they did offer to pay him, and they did offer to extend him and all those things, but he's getting like life-changing type money to go be a pitching coach. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, and it's not like they were going to be left in a bad spot. So you all shake hands like men and you go do what you need to do. And then they bring in Matt, and I know we'll probably talk about him in just a second, but pertaining to the state job. So Chris Lemonis is the head coach there and, grew up in South Carolina, played at the Citadel, was on the 1990 Citadel College World Series team, and, makes his way through coaching, takes Indiana to the postseason, state hires him. They win a national championship a couple of years later. Well, Lemo and Kingston coached together on Team USA just a few years back. That staff was loaded, Tyler. You had Lemo, Coach King, Tony Skoll at the Citadel, and Dan McDonald, who's up at Louisville right now. So, all these guys know each other really well. They're all really good friends. They all talk, and this was a situation that just really worked out very well for Mississippi State. The guy that Coach Lemonis had to let go was Scott Foxhall, who grew up in Greer, pitched at the College of Charleston, coached at the College of Charleston under Ralph Sibiteri. He knew Chris Lemonis. They were like brothers, but that's a business thing, right? I mean, you got to do what you got to do, and their staff was really struggling. So, a lot of strings overlapping here, but at the end of the day, for South Carolina got an unbelievable pitching coach, and so did Mississippi State, and everybody kind of goes home a winner.
And I imagine for Justin Parker, if he's able to go down there and turn around the Mississippi State staff here in the next couple of years, that'll put him in high regard for potential head coaching opportunities somewhere else around the country. And again, you mentioned the money as being a motivating factor, but certainly that is something that could be on his mind as well.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, you if you go there and you do what you can do. Now, I mean, look, Coach Lemonis is still, they got to win some ball games, because now that they've won a national championship, Mississippi State, like, people need to remember something here. This isn't, and I don't mean this disrespectfully at all towards Mississippi State football. Mississippi State baseball, Mississippi State football are two different things. Like, you're not, it's not like you're losing. It's not like Shane Beamer is losing, I don't know, Dowell Loggins to Mississippi State football, and everybody's wondering what's going on here, right? He lost Justin Parker to a heck of a program. So, like, Lemo is still on the hook over there. They got to win some games, or, their next move will be to get rid of him. And then that could leave Coach Parker kind of hanging out there. At the same time, though, he can step in and do a really good job, being paid handsomely. And you're right, from a head coaching position, it is a good move for him. And, Skylar Meade, it just happened to Skylar. He comes to South Carolina, does a great job, and gets hired as the head coach over at Troy. So it's a good move for everybody. Wish JP the best, and who knows, maybe we'll see him again someday.
And for Matt Williams coming in here from Liberty, this is a name that's been on the radar for Kingston for a while now, so a lot of familiarity there, obviously. And when you look at the numbers that he put up with his staff there at Liberty, as you said, it's a great hire for South Carolina, and shouldn't be expected to have too much of a drop off with Williams coming in here.
Well, no, there won't be any drop off. He's excellent. Yeah, he's excellent, man. He, born and raised in South Carolina. His dad, Coach Steve Williams, is a legend. And this guy knows it inside and out. But here's the thing about Matt. First of all, you're putting Matt and Monty together. Nobody's going to out recruit those two guys. Nobody in this state, and they've missed on some big time players in the last couple of years. That's not going to happen. But also with Matt Williams, he knows the JUCO route really, really, really well. So does Monty. And that's kind of been forgotten about in a lot of this because the transfer portal, right? So you sign high school kids and you sign transfers. But, being able to still dig into the JUCO guys, find those diamonds in the rough, understanding the travel ball guys, he knows everybody. And, oh, yeah, he's a really good pitching coach. So, then there's going to be no drop off. They're going to sign players. These kids are going to develop. He's exactly where he wants to be. It's a program he knows and understands. And South Carolina is going to be there. They'll be more than fine. I can assure you of that.
And you mentioned bringing in guys from the transfer portal. They've already signed several, including one of the pitchers that Matt Williams had there at Liberty this past season. There are going to be some names that are going to be departing, particularly from the starting rotation from the weekend. But, good for obviously Williams to get in here over the course of the summer. And he's already met with the guys currently on staff, and will have plenty of time to put together a good roster before the spring rolls around.
Yep. I think really for the first time, I want to be fair, but I would venture a guess that for the first time, Tyler, since Coach King has been here, the end of the season has come around, and they're still standing on solid ground moving forward. And that's the history of Gamecock baseball. You're always going to have to plug some holes. That happens. But rebuilding a roster every year or two, that's not ideal. Nobody wants to do that, especially at one of the top programs in college baseball. And I think for the first time since Coach King has been here, although there's a boatload of names that will be departing for pro baseball, more than likely, there still is an outstanding group that they're able to build around Matthew Becker, Eli Jones, Roman Kimball, Chris Beach, and so on and so forth. And they'll add some names to that, and they'll move forward. So, yeah, they're in good shape.
Elsewhere with college baseball, the season wraps up tonight with LSU and Florida in Game 3 of the College World Series. Definitely a back-and-forth weekend. You had LSU picking up the win on Saturday night in extra innings, then Florida just dominating yesterday, 24-4. I think a lot of us expected this game to go to the series to go to 3 games, but I don't know if anybody saw the offensive flurry that Florida was able to put on LSU yesterday coming.
No. So you've got a strange, not strange, but you've got I think an unfortunate trend happening in college baseball right now. So, and now I understand it. I do understand it, but it's also, it kind of takes away from the game a little bit, because what you had yesterday, you had a Florida team that obviously played spectacular baseball, but you also had LSU when this thing was in the bag. They weren't, there was a point where they finally, I don't want to say threw in the towel, but they surely weren't going to run out there down 6, 7, 8, 9 runs unless they saw their offense really piling some runs on the board. They weren't going to run out there and start throwing some of their better arms, because so they lose that game, but they live to play another one today because they won Game 1. So you don't want to lose Game 2, but then that also costs you Game 3. If you know what I'm saying, because Florida's staff is deeper, and LSU has some guys, but it just has to line up perfectly for them, and it might. And so we'll see what happens tonight. But one of the things that happened yesterday too, and that was just a dumpster fire of a college baseball game. But one of the things that happened yesterday, and I didn't even realize it for whatever reason until Saturday night, and I just don't like this. This is the College World Series, and I get it that TV is involved. But there is zero reason for these guys to play at 7 o'clock on Saturday night and turn around and play at 3 o'clock on Sunday. all because you have a Sunday night baseball game coming up. Like that's ridiculous. You know, they got to figure it out. There's no reason that the two best teams in college baseball should be rushing to squeeze into a TV time slot on just that game went extra innings Saturday night. So they're at the field, less than 12 hours later to play for a national championship. That's crazy. They need to give these guys the time that they deserve. Luckily, that game ended early, so they'll play at 7:00 tonight. But yeah, 24-4. Regardless of anything that I just said, you would expect two teams in the national championship. You would not expect one of them to be giving up 24 runs. That's for sure.
Right. And speaking of quick turnarounds, the big question mark going in tonight is what is going to be the deal with Paul Skeens on the LSU side of things. I was listening to Jay Johnson's press conference after last night's game where he wouldn't give an answer one way or the other. He basically said on Monday, we'll evaluate what options we have. The best pitcher in all of college baseball, you got to imagine he's going to get out there in some capacity, but having thrown over 120 pitches in his last two outings over the course of just over the past week, you're definitely not going to get a full game out of him, but he's got to be used to in some kind of way tonight, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think. I mean, this is the number one pick in the draft. And so you're living in this world, this vacuum world where, everything is diagnosed. Everything. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't see any way that he starts, but if they're in a tight game and they feel like he'd probably have to pitch today anyways, like from a bullpen standpoint. I think when did he last throw? On Thursday?
Yeah, that would have been Thursday against Wake Forest.
Thursday, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're talking about 3 days rest. So he would have had Friday off. He would have probably thrown a flat ground Saturday. Yeah. So he'd probably be throwing today anyways. I don't know what they're going to do, man. If they throw him, my guess is they're going to try to squeeze 2 or 3 innings out of him, but they got to figure out where they'll get the most value in doing so. And are they going to let him be 100%? Is 80% Paul Skeens better than the next guy they were going to use? And there's a lot of valuation going in there. I would imagine you'll see him tonight if it's a tight game one way or another. If it's not, then you probably won't see him. But I don't think there's any way to start him. I don't think.
Game 3 coming up tonight between LSU and Florida, as Jamie mentioned, at 7:00 on ESPN, and the national championship will be crowned in that game. And certainly very excited to see what happens tonight. Going to run to a timeout, come back on the other side, continue our conversation with Jamie Bradford this morning. It is the early game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunter, Jen Jensen on the other side of the glass here on 107.5 The Game.
Have you missed any of the early game?
You can catch up by going to the early game on demand page at 1075thegame.com.
Or by downloading our 107.5 The Game app on iTunes or Google Play.
This is Boomer Esiason with the CBS Sports Minute. The Mets yesterday blew a 3-run 8th-inning lead in amazing style. Rookie third baseman Brett Beatty screwed up a double ball to make it 6-4. A bases-loaded walk made it 6-5. Then Jeff Brigham plunked Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner on successive pitches. 7-6 Philadelphia, game over, weekend over. See ya. I'm Boomer Esiason. CBS Sports Radio.
Baseball season's in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/win to join today. Don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Go to FanDuel.com/win to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
Must be present state where lawful to wager 21 plus in president select states. First online real money wager. Only $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In Arizona, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. 1-888-770-STOP Louisiana. GamblingHelpMA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Visit mdgamblinghelp.com in Maryland. 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. 1-888-522-4700 in Wyoming or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia.
Sponsored by Family Dollar. Celebrate big this summer while saving more with Family Dollar. Find a great variety of decorations and accessories to set the party mood. Plus, everything for the grill and your favorite drinks at great prices. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
It's the Love Chevrolet Countdown to Gamecock Football.
68 days till kickoff.
Your trusted family-owned dealership since 1961. Get the vehicle you want, not the one you have to settle for. Love Chevy, South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer.
I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com.
Find new roads.
South Carolina Department of Corrections is hiring correctional officers, nurses, food services, facilities maintenance, mental health professionals, law enforcement officers, teachers, and more statewide. There are sign-on bonuses for officers, food services, nurses, and law enforcement officers. South Carolina Department of Corrections has great employee benefits, like 6 weeks of PTO accrued yearly and police officer retirement. Start a rewarding new career today. Visit joinscdc.com to apply.
Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause thousands of dollars in damage to your home's foundation. Canty Foundation can replace your gutters and save you money.
Canty installs gutter shutter.
Call us today for your free inspection.
Canty can fix it.
Having a reliable gutter system is essential to protecting your home's interior and exterior. Heavy rain can unleash gallons of water onto your home, and poorly maintained or leaky gutters could lead to roofing, siding, and water damage that is expensive to repair or replace. Online at cantygutters.com.
Trust, we want trust.
New Silverados are on the ground now, and more are on the way to Herndon Chevrolet. We're taking up to $15,000 off to get you in your new truck. Stop by your hometown Chevy dealer and shop all your favorite models at prices you'll love. Find new roads at Herndon Chevrolet or visit us online at herndonchevy.com today.
Herndon Chevrolet, Herndon makes you wanna smile, smile.
107.5 The Game traffic, sponsored by the South Carolina Department of Corrections.
South Carolina Department of Corrections is hiring statewide with huge pay raises. Correctional officers can now make $50,000 plus in their first year. Officers must be at least 18 years of age. Visit joinscdc.com to apply.
WIS-TV First Alert Traffic on 107.5 The Game.
Couple accidents to let you know about. I-20 eastbound there at Highway 378. Also, I-20 eastbound there at Malfunction Junction. You'll find a tie-up. I-20 westbound at Monticello Road. Also, I-77 southbound at Bluff Road. And looking at 321 at Cedar Creek Road. Also an accident there. Traffic lights currently malfunctioning. Faro at I-77. Looking for some storms later this afternoon and this evening, but a high of 92 for the next couple of days. And really no more rain in the forecast after today. It's 70 right now at 107.5 The Game.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. This is 107.5 The Game.
A great selection of new Chevys is available now at Herndon Chevrolet. The lot is packed with inventory and more is on the way. So shop your hometown Chevy dealer today.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile.
Welcome back into the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunter this morning. He will be back tomorrow alongside Preston, as Preston had to bounce a few minutes early to get to a meeting this morning. Continuing our conversation with Jamie Bradford, who joins us on the Love Chevy phone lines. It was a big weekend for recruiting here in Columbia, as the month of June was obviously very, very busy with a lot of official visits, and none busier than this past weekend, where you had a lot of committed guys on campus. Josiah Thompson, Mazio Bennett, Blake Franks, to name a few, as well as a handful of guys still waiting to make their commitment announcement, led by the 5-star edge prospect out of the DC area in Dylan Stewart. And Preston and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. When you read everything coming away from these big recruiting weekends, of course, every recruit's going to say it was great, I enjoyed it, I loved what the coaches said, blah, 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 blah. But you really have to read between the lines on how well these visits really went. And now we're kind of in this waiting period to see where all these guys decide they want to go play at the next level.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, the difference for the Gamecocks now versus the past, Tyler, is, and again, I think I mentioned this earlier, and I don't mean this disrespectfully towards anybody, because Coach Muschamp himself could absolutely recruit. He had a bunch of guys on his staff who could recruit. Problem with some of those guys is they couldn't recruit to South Carolina, and there's a difference. And you know, Coach Beamer has this is a middle class blue collar program, right? And you know, you're not walking into You're not walking into a kitchen to meet with parents with an A on your chest or a G on your chest or a Gator head or anything like that. You're walking in with a Gamecock logo, and so it's a little bit different. So these guys do their homework long before a lot of these kids ever get to campus, and this is the campus visits, the cherry on top. And so they understand how to recruit to South Carolina. It's not as simple as just, well, we're Alabama, let's just get them to campus and we'll sew it up here. They have to truly build relationships to get these kids to campus. And you hear Shane talk about that all the time. And you hear these kids say stuff like that. And you had a couple of that coming out of a couple of guys saying stuff like that coming out of this weekend's big recruiting weekend with the cookout and all the officials and all those type things. So they do a great job. They're not going to land every one of them. It's impossible to do that. But they're in the thick of it with every one of them, which seemingly that used to be impossible in South Carolina. But I do think they're going to land the large majority of the guys that they really have targeted, the big names that are still left on the board. And their recruiting class is headed towards not great, but absolutely outstanding. I mean, I know I've talked to a source in that building a couple of weeks ago, and they don't even blink at the fact that they legitimately expect to have a top 10 recruiting class this coming year. So yeah, they're doing a wonderful job. And these kids get to campus and they feel right at home when they get there. And it's trending their way. Now you got to go win games, right? When they kick off the season against North Carolina.
And it's obviously strategic the way they plan all this out with these specific guys: Stewart, Daniel Hill, the running back out of Mississippi, Jonathan Paylor, the wide receiver from North Carolina, as well as David Busey, the linebacker from Savannah. Bringing these guys in on a weekend where you're also going to have a lot of already committed guys on campus, and what kind of dynamic makes it different? Or how does that dynamic make it different for the weekend as a whole when you have so many guys already here that are already committed for 2024?
Yeah, it feels like family. I mean, it's funny you say that because I was talking to a coach when I was at the ballpark for the regional, one of our football coaches, and I was spending some time with him. And I said, it's so funny when y'all have major recruiting weekends, how the guys that you're bringing in just so happen to overlap with some of the dudes that you've already got committed. And he just winked at me. They're pretty smart. They know what they're doing. So, I mean, they get these guys on campus because, I mean, one of the pitches for Coach Beamer, and again, you got to be really good at evaluating not just talent, but people, right? Like you don't want other kids spending time around kids that either A, aren't going to end up coming to school here, or B, aren't going to be good influences on them. But if you get that part right, which for the most part they have, one of their pitches is, hey, look, this is your decision. Wherever you go, you're going to be living in that dorm or that condo or whatever it is for the next 3 years. These are the people you're going to be around. And that's an important part of college. Like we all went to college. Would you want to spend time in your college dorm with 3 or 4 other guys or 2 or 3 other guys or whatever it is, and you don't like them? No, of course not. So, and would you, if you're playing college athletics, do you want to go play for a guy that you don't like with some dudes that you don't like? No, there's a comfort level there. And so a lot of times that will supersede the logo on the chest or on the jersey or whatever it is. And so they're pretty good at making sure that people feel right at home. And, I think it was last year, Tyler, I'm pretty sure it was last year, when Dante Reno and do you remember this? Dylan Lonergan and Dante Reno did pretty closely together. And of course, Dylan ended up going to Alabama, but he's also on the baseball team in Alabama. Well, one of the comments I got off the record from a coach there was when Dante Reno walked in the room, they felt like they had their quarterback. He owned it. He walked it. Not only can he play and he can spin it, but he walked in the room and he was walking up to every guy there. It didn't matter who they were. They didn't have to be a 5-star or a 4-star or a 3-star. They could be a no-star. But if they were on campus visiting, hey, I'm Dante. What's up? You want to throw the football? Where are you from? Introduce me to your mom. What's your favorite food? He owned the room everywhere he went. And he was like, and this particular source told me, this guy is a quarterback. they didn't exactly get that feel from Dylan Lonergan. Not saying he's not going to play well at Alabama or anything like that. That's not what they're saying. They just meant for their fit in Columbia, South Carolina, and so, you know, if you've noticed, he's been on campus for a lot of these major events, whether he flew himself there or they flew him in, one way or another, he was there. So they're pretty good about getting that family feel and utilizing a lot of the different talents that these kids bring to the table, like kind of that leadership type quarterback. Hey, I want to play with this guy.
And, you know, obviously you're not going to be able to get all these guys to commit to your program. You only have so many scholarships, obviously. But I look at a guy like Dylan Stewart, who is named South Carolina into his top 5. And again, he's projected to be one of the best players in the entire country for the 2024 cycle. And yes, you would obviously love to have him. But when you look at, you know, Nick Harbor, who's obviously coming in for this season, you have Dylan Stewart, who has South Carolina in their top 5. Just the fact that these guys are given serious consideration to a program like South Carolina that hasn't had the same success as the Alabamas and the Georgias over the past decade or so, like, how far does that go for future classes? They start to look at this program a little bit differently as Shane Beamer continues to build.
Oh, it's enormous. I mean, you know, let's not miss the boat on this either. Like, they got to win. You know, they've got to win games. You can sign a 5-star, 2 5-stars, 10 5-stars every year, and if you're not winning games, at the end of the day, it's not really going to matter. But the more talent you sign, of course, you're probably going to win more games. So, to your point, I mean, they found a niche here. You know, they're not just trying to sign the best players from like the Atlanta area or South Florida or, you know, some of these North Carolina guys, because you walk in and you're going head to head every week with every one of your peers. They're getting in early on some of these guys, like up there in that DC, that Delmarva area, and they're creating these great relationships, and they've been able to get it figured out. So how far does it go? I don't even know if I can answer the question. If they keep winning games, it's going to go a lot further than probably a lot of people ever thought it could go around here. But they're signing elite talent. The Dylan Stewart kid, you know, I don't know exactly what will end up happening with him. I know this. I know they feel not good, but they feel great, like really great. If that kid comes to school, he's going to be on the field. Like, he's not. You can't compare anybody to Jadeveon Clowney, and Jadeveon Clowney didn't even come in and start. People forget that. Like, Brad Lawing made him earn his stripes, but he's a kid who could have that type of impact in his freshman year, and how soon that could happen, I'm not sure. But he's like a day one type guy where he's going to play. You just got to figure out what the best spot to put him on the field is.
Right. And we'll continue to keep our eye on all these guys as we're expecting some commitment announcements from a few of them here soon. Coming up next, we'll get some of Jamie's thoughts on Gigi Jackson getting drafted in the NBA draft team to last week, going to the Memphis Grizzlies. That's coming up next. You're listening to The Early Game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunter, Jen Jensen on the other side of the glass here on the Early Game on 107.5 The Game.
Got something to say?
Ring us up on the Love Chevy phone line. South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer.
At 803-404-61
Tony, that's really cool. I've been past that Naval Training Center before. Yeah, it's been busy. Are you flying into O'Hare or are you flying into Midway? Yeah. O'Hare makes sense, but we go with the cheapest fares, right?
For more boxes, mailers, and shipping tubes. Plus, find new deals for small business in-store every week. Keep your business running right and safe at Staples. Offer valid in-store, online order pickup, and Instacart. Exclusions apply. Not valid in Concord, New Hampshire location. Prices may vary. N71.
Wake up, people. You are optimizing every waking hour of your life. From carpooling kids, to work, to friends, and everything in between. You have to get sleep and a bed that can perform as well as you do. Meet the next generation Sleep Number Smart Bed. It effortlessly adjusts to your shape, position, and movements, learning how you sleep so you learn to sleep better night after night. Sleep next level, only from Sleep Number.
The Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is now only $899 plus special financing. Ends Monday. See store for details.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, this is Lisa Hostetler Brown. Did you know that by getting a comprehensive estate plan, you can avoid the future costs of probate, conservatorship, and numerous other legal issues? See how planning now can save thousands later. Visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Lexington Medical Heart and Vascular Center has once again earned the nation's highest ratings for 3 types of heart surgery, and they're the only hospital in South Carolina to do it. These elite 3-star ratings mean the best heart care in the nation is available to you right here at home.
1075 The Game traffic, sponsored by the South Carolina Department of Corrections.
South Carolina Department of Corrections is hiring statewide with huge pay raises. Correctional officers can now make $50,000 plus in their first year. Officers must be at least 18 years of age. Visit joinscdc.com to apply.
WIS-TV First Alert Traffic on 1075 The Game.
Pisgah Church Road at Wilson Boulevard. We do have a report of an accident there. Also, I-77 southbound at Bluff Road and I-20 eastbound at Clemson Road have an accident in progress as well. Some late day storms today, 92 for the high, 92 tomorrow, 93 on Wednesday, basically in the 90s all week. Right now, the sun is back out. It's 70 at 1075 The Game.
What you're talking about.
Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. 1075 The Game.
And welcome back into the early game here on 1075 The Game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunser this morning. Jen Jensen on the other side of the glass. Real quick, want to replay a little bit of audio we had from Coach Paris into last week talking about Gigi Jackson.
I'm extremely proud of all the things that he's done, and actually probably lowest on the list are his basketball accomplishments. I expected that all those would happen, but again, as I mentioned before, just at the age he was with some of the obstacles that he had, we had a guy on our team that was 26 years old, maybe 25 last year on our team, managing all that stuff, preparing every day, the whole rigors of the SEC slate, and doing all that and still coming out on top. And so I'm extremely proud of him, but most importantly, I'm excited for him.
And again, that was Coach Paris talking last week after Gigi Jackson drafted by the Grizzlies in the second round at pick number 45. Continuing our conversation with Jamie Bradford from the bigspur.com. And Jamie, a lot of people surprised that Gigi Jackson fell in the second round, but at the same time, a lot of people not so surprised that Gigi Jackson fell into the second round after what was a very up and down season for him at South Carolina.
Yeah, I hate to say it, I wasn't shocked. Certainly hope the best for him. First of all, for him as a person and as a player, want to see him be as successful as he can be. And secondly, for the University of South Carolina, as he's their first draft pick since Sindarius Thornwell. So it's been a while. And so you want to have as many of those guys representing your program in the league as you can. I think, though, something that is kind of underlying in this is the fact that, and we'll see how the rest of the roster shakes out, but, Memphis they finished first in the Southwest this year. They were pretty good. What they finished, I think, 20 games over 500. So it's not like he's going into an organization where, they're going to be banging on him to be the face of the organization and try to get it turned around. I mean, there's a difference. I mean, Tyler, you understand, I'm sure the NBA draft, you see it every year where you get the best players in the country. They're expected to come in and basically be the turnaround story for that organization or that franchise. And then you have guys who are expected to come in and grow into it or grow with it. Or develop themselves within it. And I think that's where he's at, which is great because he's still really young and he's got some things he needs to develop. And he's even alluded to this from time to time, not directly, but indirectly, kind of talking about, some of the things he wishes he could have back at South Carolina from the way that he acted on and off the floor. And, that's a maturity thing, right? So you got to mature, you got to figure it out. And so we'll see how it all works out for him, but I wasn't surprised. I thought he might have a chance to slide a little bit and he did, but that doesn't mean in any way, shape or form that he isn't going to have an outstanding career. I think he's got all the tools and I think he will be in the league for a long time.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. The Grizzlies is a good situation for him because, again, he doesn't have to come in and be the guy from day one. He can, go into the G League, continue to develop, continue to mature. Again, he's only 18 years old. Should have been going into his freshman year of college this upcoming season, but plenty of time for GG Jackson to develop into what the Grizzlies want for him to be as an NBA player. With him falling, though, and yes, a lot of it does kind of fall on his attitude at times during this past season, but it's going to reflect on the South Carolina program as a whole from a national perspective. And obviously, GG Jackson, had he come out of high school and been able to go in the draft, probably would have been a lottery pick. But after a season, South Carolina ends up sliding into the second round. How does somebody like Coach Paris, kind of get out in front of that narrative to not have that be seen as a negative thing for the program as a whole?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not totally sure that it'll be as big of an impact as maybe initially thought. I mean, I still think at the end of the day, it's about winning games. And, if you win games, you're going to have players that want to play for you. I mean, basketball I think we all know this, can be a little bit dirty behind the scenes. And so they have to, they got to overcome a lot of different things. But, I also think that, GG specifically, I mean, if he's ever asked about that, I mean, I think the answer is probably a pretty lengthy one. And if you're Coach Paris, I mean, Coach Paris is a very smart basketball mind, so, it's certainly not going to be anybody that's going to try to put words in his mouth. But I think one of the things that he'll probably try to do is explain the fact that there are aspects of GG's game that did get a lot better at South Carolina, but what he also did was kind of expose the things that would have initially been exposed anyways in the NBA. And that would have been a much more difficult place to be able to kind of clear those hurdles. And doing it at college when your family's not far from home and things like that, it makes jumping over those hurdles a little bit easier. So, I think there's still definitely a story to sell there. I just think that at the end of the day, winning basketball games is really what's going to draw attention to South Carolina's program. And they got to start doing that.
Well, for GG Jackson's sake, I think we all hope he just avoids hanging around with John Moran when it comes to the off-the-court stuff.
Yeah, that's the caveat. Like, you're headed to Memphis, but yeah, that guy. I mean, it's not like they don't know each other. I mean, they're only their hometowns are only like 40 minutes apart. So be careful. That's right.
Well, and the good thing for at least all we know of what happens with inside the facility for the Grizzlies, when he's at the facility inside those walls, John Morant seems like a good teammate and a guy that doesn't cause too many problems. It's just when he gets outside of it and, I guess hanging out with old friends and people from that hometown, that's when the issues really start to mount.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree. And, with as young as he, and this isn't like just a Gigi Jackson conversation. I mean, I was 18, I was 19, you were, everybody's been there. You can quickly get wrapped up in things that really don't matter, but they're fun at that moment. And when you have a lot of money like he's about to have in his pocket and all of his friends are about to have, things happen. So you got to be really careful, and my understanding is, you got to make sure you've surrounded yourself with a good team of people who keep you moving in the right direction. But I'm confident he will. He's got a really good family. He's going to be okay. And I actually think that kind of goes back to some of what we just talked about. Like, hey, look, you've already stubbed your toe a couple of times. Let's not do that now up on this platform where when you do it, the whole world's going to see it. You're going to be the leading Sports Center and everything else. Don't be an idiot. Just play basketball and do the things that you need to do to be successful, and you'll be fine.
Absolutely. Run to one last timeout, come back and wrap up today's edition of the Early Game in our conversation with Jamie Bradford here on 107.5 The Game.
We are very social.
At 107.5 The Game on Twitter, 107.5 The Game on Instagram, and 107.5 The Game on Facebook.
Oh, Teddy, did you get my friend request? I'll have to check.
Your home of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game.
Sponsored by Lowe's. Shop top summer savings now at Lowe's. Save up to an additional $1,000 on select major kitchen appliances. Plus, save up to $3,165 on select 4-piece LG kitchen suites. Offer valid through 6/28. Savings based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for details.
It's the Love Chevrolet Countdown to Gamecock Football.
68 days till kickoff.
Your trusted family-owned dealership since 1961. Get the vehicle you want, not the one you have to settle for. Love Chevy, South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Find new roads.
Hey, this is Matt Rogers from Hazelwood Brewing Company, the town of Lexington's premier brewery, taproom, and beer garden. Conveniently located right on Main Street. Live music, food trucks, and a rotating selection of 10 award-winning handcrafted beers, plus a selection of wine, cider, and beer slushies. Check out hazelwoodbeerco.com and follow on social media for a current list of what's happening. hazelwoodbeerco.com. Hazelwood, it's all good in the wood.
When you come home to a floor covered in water, a backed up bathroom, or a water heater break, call Pulliam Restoration. We handle all water emergencies, including attics and crawl spaces. At Pulliam Restoration, we have the guaranteed fastest response time and pride ourselves on getting to you in minutes, not hours. I'm Robert Pulliam. An emergency to you is an emergency to us. It's your choice who you use in an emergency. Choose Pulliam Restoration. We're ready 24/7. Pulliam247.com or call us at 803-PULLIAM.
Interest rates are going up all over town, but Galliana Kia has rates going down, down, down. Now you can finance a new Kia at 0% APR at Galliana Kia on Greystone. Or you can buy now and pay later with no payments all summer long. 2023 Kia Rio LX, just $16,990. And any trade goes. We'll get you out of your current loan or lease, even if you're over mileage, have months left, or still owe thousands. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you've got a job and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved for a new Kia with 0% APR financing. Summer sales event at Galliana Kia on Greystone. I-126 Zoo exit in Columbia. Call 779-7300 or KiaColumbia.com. Rio stock number 3K1127 plus tax and tax includes $225 closing fee. To qualified buyers, $41.66 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 24 months at 0 APR with 0 down. Dealer rebates up to $400 per month till September. Negative trade equity financed to new loans subject to lender approval. Offers don't combine, expires month end.
Can you imagine being a superhero?
With a sidekick?
Can you imagine you can fly?
Your sidekick shows up wherever you are.
In a fancy blue truck.
And whatever you point at disappears.
1-800-GOT-JUNK is your sidekick.
We're twitching in anticipation.
Vibrating with energy.
We haul away whatever you point at.
Any home or apartment.
Workplace or job site.
We're industrial strength sidekicks.
All you have to do is point.
Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Or visit 1-800-GOTJUNK.com.
107.5 The Game traffic from the Shepherd's Glass Traffic Center.
Shepherd's Glass, a true reflection of quality. ShepherdsGlass.com.
Hey, everyone, a good Monday morning to you. It's time for another First Alert traffic update. This one, a quick turnaround from a prior accident on I-77 southbound between exits 5 and 6. Did shut down all lanes for a brief period of time, but seemingly quick turnaround. And now traffic is moving again. So good thing to see. I-77 southbound. And other than that, we've seen a pretty good area of traffic flows all around the region now on our heavily traveled roadways and interstates. So keep up with us, of course, any other major changes. This has been a WIS First Alert traffic update. I'm meteorologist Tony Chiavaroli. Make it a great travel day.
Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. This is 107.5 The Game.
Discover Herndon Certified, Herndon Chevrolet's premier used car warranty. Shop with complete confidence knowing Herndon Chevrolet has got you covered.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. The early game
With Bill Gunter, Preston Thorne, and Jen Jensen.
on your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back in to the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler Head in for Bill Gunter this morning. He'll be back tomorrow alongside Preston and Jen on that'll be Tuesday morning. Today is Monday, obviously. And Jamie Bradford, as we wrap up our conversation, I posed this question to our audience early on in the show as Preston and I were just talking about the weather at the start of the 6 o'clock hour and how hot it's obviously starting to get here in South Carolina. And I've gotten a lot of engagement from our audience on the Firehouse Subs text line. Hottest sporting events you've ever attended? I know you've obviously been to a lot of events covering South Carolina for BigSpur.com. Any of them stick out to you as just ungodly hot?
Oh, I can, as a fan, I can tell you, there's a couple. I'm just trying to remember the exact years. I know in 2000 and I think it was 2011, Charlotte, when South Carolina and East Carolina opened up that year, that was hot. And it was probably hot because of the side of the stadium I was on, but it was hot. Man, that's an interesting question. You should have prepped me on this. I would have actually had to think about it and figure it out. There's been some. I remember that one. That one definitely stands out. Like I remember a year in Athens, 2007 football. That was pretty hot. That was pretty hot over there too. There's certainly been plenty of them in Columbia. With baseball, it's interesting with baseball. You really only get it to where it's scorching hot if you're hosting the regionals.
Sure.
And seemingly every time you host a regional, it's either going to be 100 degrees or it's going to rain. And, it happens every time. So that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we had a couple people weighing in. This nameless texter said the 2010 regional at Coastal 12 noon game was unbelievably hot and humid. And again, as you mentioned, some of the regionals that obviously were hosted here in Columbia as well, it gets just ungodly hot at the beginning of June. A couple people also weighed in with 2001 Quincy Carter game at Willie B. That was also a hot one. And Preston confirmed that. He said, he wasn't playing in that game, but standing on the sidelines just made it 10 times worse.
Yeah, that is a good one. I remember that well because I was in the south end zone that day as a fan, and it was hot. That is a really, really good one. There's been if I actually went back and really started thinking about it with Carolina football and Williams-Brice, I'm sure I could come up with quite a few. I mean, I've seen them all. So, but that one was that's a really good one. Yeah, I remember one of the coldest ones I've ever been to, which was Tennessee in 2000 and I think it was 2014. It snowed the night before. That was really cold. There was believe it or not, this is going to sound really strange, but it was because the wind was blowing too off of Tampa Bay. But the first Outback Bowl down in Tampa in January 1st, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
The Papa John's Bowl in 2009. Carolina got beat by UConn. It was a miserable day. They ran out of Papa John's pizza in the first quarter. Can you believe that?
Oh,
At the bowl game.
that's just not fitting at all. I think I remember Bill telling the story of being at that game, and I think he said his seats were like in the shaded area of the stadium too, so that made it like 10 times worse.
Dude, yeah, it was so, oh my gosh, I can't believe how cold it was. And you went downstairs to get pizza, and they're like, we're out. But you're the Papa John's Bowl. How are you out of pizza? So yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Not to redirect it, so I actually have a good answer for you. But it was, yeah. There's been a bunch of hot ones. It's just hard to kind of get them on the line.
Yeah, and another one Todd told us a little bit earlier, mid-September 2019, when Alabama came to town. That was also a pretty brutal day at Williams-Brice Stadium. Preston and I and Colin Taylor and I have come to the assumption, we talk about the old Jefferson Pilot sports games that would always broadcast at 12 noon. If you had a game at noon on Jefferson Pilot Sports, it was guaranteed to be no cooler than like 95 degrees. And I think a lot of these games people are bringing up would have fallen into that category.
Yeah, that was, I kind of missed those games, but yeah, they pretty much all were. All those noon games in September were always really hot. I mean, the Alabama game when the Gamecocks beat them in 2010, that wasn't really hot, but it was unseasonably warm that day because it was early October. But yeah, generally those late August. I mean, the A&M game was hot in 2014 when they walked in and beat the hell out of South Carolina to open the SEC network.
At least that game went into the evening though, as like a half day, half night game.
Yeah, it was a 7:30 kick, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there's been a few. I just would have to go back and rummage through them. I mean, even back into the 90s, some of the early 90s games at Williams-Brice before, like back then, in the early 90s, you didn't have the south end zone. So if you were on the north side and the sun was coming around, it was going to pepper you like it peppers the east side now for like those 3:30 kicks.
Right.
So yeah, it was, there's some days back then, it was pretty brutal and you had no escape, but you got through it, and the adults got through it with a lot of booze, I guess.
Well, that's one way to stay warm when it's either really cold outside or just helps you forget that it's really hot outside.
Yeah. I think it's the forgetting part is more along the lines of what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Well, we're steadily creeping up on those hot days. I think yesterday was had to have been one of the hottest days of the year. Certainly felt like that, and I think we're creeping up on the mid to high 90s by the end of the week. And yeah, once the season rolls around, I believe the Furman game, week 2, the home opener, that's going to be a night game, so a little bit of reprieve there. But as we get into September and early October, definitely probably going to have some very hot home games at Williams-Brice.
Yep. Well, I mean, one of the things that's been good about being able to utilize the streaming services now is that, like, Coach Tanner could go in and say, "Hey, look, that Furman game, let's stream it." So at least we can kind of choose our kickoff time, and it's worked out.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Jamie, thanks for hanging out with me for the past hour. You'll have to put up with. No, we're not going to have a show next Monday, so you can get a break from Bill for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually out of town this week too. So y'all, appreciate y'all as always. And since we won't speak to anybody before this, happy 4th of July to everybody. And we'll talk soon. Getting close to SEC Media Days.
Yeah, it'll be here before you know it. All right. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, guys. See you.
And Jamie Bradford of thebigspur.com. That is all the time we have on today's edition of the early game. Again, Bill in tomorrow morning with Preston and Jen. Coming up next, it's In the Bonus with myself and Colin Taylor right here on 107.5 The Game.
WNKT FM, Eastover, Columbia.
Hey, this is Gamecock catcher Cole Messina. You're listening to the home of the Gamecocks at 107.5 The Game.
A Cumulus media station.
Hi, everybody. This is Woody Wyndham here to talk about Pioneer Tree Service. Guy Gant's not with us anymore, but his girls are. Madison Gant just walked in. How you doing?
Doing great, Woody. How are you?
Good. Madison, I see your trucks everywhere for Pioneer Tree Service. Tell us some of the people you work with.
We've been very busy with residential and commercial customers.
So, Madison, you're doing the State House, Midlands Tech, City of Columbia, University of South Carolina. So you're going to want to call somebody you can trust. And that is the Gant girls at Pioneer Tree Service. And now there's a new little Gant girl, Dawson. We got all the Gant girls in the room.
We do tree removal, stump removal, tree pruning, tree trimming, tree thinning, tree cabling, and we will raise your tree canopy.
And no matter where you live, the Gant girls can get there. So, hey, Gant girls, how do they get in touch with you?
Call us today for a free estimate at 803-794-8253.
Or check us out online at Pioneer Tree SC.
Hey, this is Matt Rogers from Hazelwood Brewing Company, the town of Lexington's premier brewery, taproom, and beer garden, conveniently located right on Main Street. Live music, food trucks, and a rotating selection of 10 award-winning